What's going on, Defiance? This is Defion Productions Podcast, episode number 90. I'm your host, the hardest working nobody in Bitcoin, Don. We are going to talk about the Fed decision today, Jerome Powell making a decision on rates, and also dot plotting for what we can expect or should expect in the next couple of months to end out the second half of 2025. We're going to talk about the latest in the war going on, the bombs going back and forth between Iran and Israel, how we can play markets, and especially Bitcoin and crypto markets when there's a lot of geopolitical uncertainty. We're going to bring up some articles to talk about a lot of things that we got. We forgot to plug it in.
Unplug the one that's not your phone, the older.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So we can go to the charts.
We good now?
Just give it a second. Usually it takes a second. Go ahead.
All right. Sorry, guys. That's what you get when you go live. Again, live stream podcast, the only live stream podcast in the Western New York area for Bitcoin and crypto. We're going to jump into the charts. First chart that we're going to look at here is the total crypto market cap is sitting at 3.26 trillion. Fear and greed index is neutral at 48. We had a lot of volatility the last couple of days. We got back up to about 110 a couple of days ago and got about as low. Even earlier today, I saw it at about 103.5. So got back into the 103s earlier. Currently sitting at 105,137. Total market cap slightly under 2.1 trillion. Ethereum sitting above 2,500 at 2,532. Total market cap at 305 billion and some change. Moving down, we got the XRP coin at $2.17, Solana at $1.47. Rounding out the top 10, got Cardano down there at 60 cents. You can kind of look and see that everything's kind of been down the last 7 days for the most part. A couple little winner. Well, actually, those are just the stable coins. But everything in the last 7 days, Bitcoin down 3%, Ethereum down almost 9%, XRP down almost 4%, Solana down almost 8%. Dogecoin down over 11, Cardano down 12.5 and some change, Sui down 15.65. So you can see there's been a lot of volatility the last 7 days. When those rockets started flying in the Middle East, the crypto markets, because, rockets typically are going off when the stock market is closed. So the crypto markets are the first ones to react. And we had major reactions in the crypto markets with Bitcoin and Ethereum and other crypto coins, going down in price as a result and going through a lot of volatility since then as a result. We'll jump into our first topic here, which is Fed decision day. The summary of the report from today, a couple things here. Number one, the Fed leaves the rates unchanged for the fourth straight meeting. Number two, Fed says uncertainty has diminished, but is still elevated. I find that statement to be pretty wild. Uncertainty being diminished, especially with what's going on in the Middle East. Number three, Fed lowers 2025 GDP estimate to 1.4%, lifts inflation estimate to 3%. So they're still running a whole percentage point over their 2% mandated target, which is 50% more than what they want, where they want to be at. Median Fed rate forecast shows a 50 basis points of rate cuts in 2025. So they're predicting about 2 rate cuts in the next 6 months to finish out 2025. Median forecast shows rates at 3.6% by 2026, 3.4% in 2027. And number 6, interest rate futures increase likelihood of rate cuts beginning in September. The Fed pause continues even as Trump calls for 100 basis point rate cuts. Earlier today, I didn't hear him, but I heard people saying that behind the scenes, he was talking about wanting a 200 basis point rate cut, and they were throwing around numbers like it would save $80 billion on the debt payments if they were to do that. This round of cuts. Obviously, he didn't do any of that. And obviously, Powell could give 2 Fs about what Trump thinks, what Trump says, or what the Trump administration wants. Powell's just kind of doing things his own way right now. He's not going to, they're supposed to be apolitical, and, Trump's putting pressure on and he's not acquiescing. So I guess that's a good thing if you wanna be in the Fed is apolitical camp. But it'll take us into our next story, which is where I feel and how I feel about the Fed. Lawrence Lepard, who's a great follow on X, better take. Congress should shut down the Federal Reserve today. Anthony Pompliano, 8 hours ago, his tweet was the Federal Reserve should cut interest rates today. Obviously, we saw that they did not. Lawrence Lepard, better take. Congress should shut down the Federal Reserve today. If you watch this podcast or you watch other Bitcoin podcasts, the overwhelming majority of Bitcoiners, for the most part, feel the same way. We should end the Fed. We think the Fed is the problem. The central bank of the United States, central banks themselves are what allow these wars, these forever wars, to go on. Before we went live today, within the hour, somebody posted a video of rockets go. I don't know who knows what day it was because they're happening like every day now, and I don't know if it was going to Israel, if it was going to Iran, and I posted underneath that, or I commented underneath that post that the amount of money in dollars, in United States dollars, that's in the sky at any given moment when these rockets are going off, in value on how much these rockets cost, is just mind-numbing. And none of that stuff is possible or available unless you have a debt-based economy with a Federal Reserve Bank that creates fiat currency. You can't just send rockets out like that knowing that you would have to have a hard money backing the money that you're spending on those rockets. That you'd be much more conservative in how you were throwing off rockets if the money that was spent on those rockets was actually real hard asset money. When it's fiat and it's fake and you can just print it, then it makes it a lot easier to both bolster your own defense, and then also send defense to other countries for them to fight other countries and send millions and billions of dollars of rockets in the sky, and then you get these wars that never end. And that's why the common theme for this past week for me on social media, I've posted it probably 100 times in the last week, is change the money, change the world, because that's the message of Bitcoin. We want to change the money. We want to make the money hard. We want to make the money sound. And if you make the money sound, then it doesn't allow for all this shenanigans that's going on currently in the Middle East, where they just, liberally sending rockets back and forth to each other. It wouldn't happen. Not to this extent, at least, because the money that would be spent on that would have to be backed by a hard asset. And it would be more finite than it is today when it's just infinity. Money is infinity. It literally doesn't exist. Next, we can kind of go through some of these stories. I found this on on X about Bitcoin scrolling earlier today, and I found it a good little graphic to kind of share for the listeners that watch our podcast that are maybe more novice or more newbies into the ecosystem, kind of break things down. We can start down here at the bottom. The fiat rail system, when you're engaging in the system of traditional finance, the fiat rails, you start with you going to your bank to make the transaction. Then you have the payment processor in the middle, whether that be, MasterCard, Visa, Venmo, PayPal, Western Union, American Express, Cash App, Robinhood, every yada, 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 everything there. And then their bank, and then the recipient. So there's all these things in the middle between you and the person that you're trying to send the money to, and all these points of failure. With Bitcoin, you have the Bitcoin network, and you have final settlement going to the recipient. That's the difference between sending fiat in the fiat rails in the fiat system and sending Bitcoin peer-to-peer to another Bitcoiner. There are no all these failure points here that or clearing houses that you got to wait for things to clear before the transaction is ultimately settled over here with the recipient. What do you think of that graphic, Rich, as being someone that's more on the outside looking in the Bitcoin ecosystem as a holder and stuff? What is your initial thoughts when you see a chart like that?
I'm just gonna bring my camera back up, but I like that graphic. I think that's kind of fun because it really does kind of break it down, especially the fiat end of it, that you've got two entities that are profiting every time I buy a pizza.
Yeah.
So everybody's benefiting, for, what I mean? That's the way I look at it. I mean, and that's why that chart really kind of describes it. It's not it's like like just bartering. You get back to a bartering system, But and you're right. Like the Bitcoin avoids all of that. And that's the question of if the person's actually using Bitcoin for that type of purchasing. But if someone gets into doing that, it's really great because you're it's avoiding the middleman, and in this case, it's two middlemen because you've got all these entities in between me and paying you. You know, it's just I get it. Like
there are more and more businesses, at least locally, that I know I can speak of. Some that I do business with myself. And this is crazy because you would think in like today's economy where cash is just less and less prevalent and it's more just everything being digital. There are businesses in our local area here in Niagara Falls where we operate that I do business with personally that only accept cash.
Right.
They've completely eliminated the payment rails of debit cards and credit cards because the percentage that those cards are taking, number one, are cutting into their bottom line. Number two, which is even more important, is the ability for them to reverse those transactions once they make those transactions and solicit their company, their MasterCard or their Visa card to say, hey, I didn't make that transaction. Right. And then the business owner is like out of luck. You know what I mean? Because you can reverse those transactions. The one thing about Bitcoin, it's good and it's bad. Once you send Bitcoin, it's gone. There's no takebacks. There are no reversals in the Bitcoin blockchain. When you send, that's why it's very. It takes a lot of study. It takes a lot of understanding. It takes a lot of patience and practice. And and as Bitcoiners, we are very, very clear on the study hours, the study time. We say study Bitcoin. Stay humble. Like all those euphemisms that you hear in Bitcoin, like you do have to take time to study because you do have to understand that when the convenience factor of what you see at the bottom here, like you're paying for convenience. When you send your money, you're sitting back and saying, all right, I'm sending my money. It's up to my bank. It's up to the payment processor. It's up to their bank for the recipient to get the money. I'm a hands off, but you pay for that, right? Because the person that's getting your transaction has to bake in those costs to the product that you're buying. So whatever you're buying, those rails are baked into what you're paying for. But if you can take all that away, you're taking away that cost. So the person that's offering you whatever product or service that they're offering can offer it at a better price because they don't have all those things to pay for and worry about.
I don't have a credit card option. I'm not going to, I don't do enough sales that it would be worth it for me to get a Square or point of sale stuff and have to buy equipment or there's just no point for me. So the only thing I do that is convenience for my folks is I do Venmo. That's the only one that I use. And I have one.
It's there.
I have a couple.
It's in there. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I have a couple people that do Zelle, but Zelle because Zelle's different because it's through my bank. So I don't have any fees on Zelle. So Zelle's okay because it's kind of a. It's kind of that. And it was funny because you talked about this last week, and I went home and talked about it with my son who loves all this stuff. And we were talking about this concept of just this virtual cash, this virtual, money that is, that going to this non-existent money. It's an interesting way of thinking about it.
We have non-existent money.
Yeah. No, but I'm that.
I know what you mean, though. Yeah.
That, that it is becoming more and more and more and more that this is just it's what was the thing you were talking about? What was the thing that had one of the sites that PayPal. So we talked about PayPal money and all that type of stuff.
Amazon and Walmart. We talked about last week opening pay. See, when you start to study Bitcoin, it challenges everything you thought you knew about money. It challenges everything you thought you knew about value. It challenges everything of what you thought you knew about energy. Because when you really peel layers back and you really start to really understand what money is, which is a very hard question there's a whole podcast, Robert Breedlove does it. It's called What is Money? And he tries to answer that question every week on his podcast and has different guests on to talk about that and ponder it. Very hard question to answer, but it challenges what you think what money is. It challenges your ideology of transacting and bartering and what that means and how we have a ledger. In the fiat system, there are so many places where there's broken ledgers where you don't know what actually, we don't know how many dollars there really are out there. We have lots of estimates and guesstimates. I just actually posted today, and my brain just works so fast that I go to different places, but I literally just posted today about an hour before we went live about still waiting for that audit in Fort Knox. Like, we don't even know how much gold or if there's gold in Fort Knox. Like, these ledgers of these other like protocols or these other asset values or things that we consider to be money, we don't even know their ledgers or how much there is or what exists and what they are. And it's like you're the idea of money, like so many people have just been concocted to believe that, like, I'll do the visual here so viewers can see. Like, people are just like this is, you think this is like, people die over this paper. People literally and figuratively die in the streets over a roll of this. 75% linen, 25% cotton. That's what people die over. And they view this as having value when this really doesn't have value. It's a way that we transact. It's what brings you goods and services. But where the real value is in real life things. And it's funny for me to talk like this, and I wish like we could have some of my childhood friends on here that could actually like combat me making this statement, because like for a long time in my life, like my friends thought I was like all about money and being money hungry. Maybe some of them will still say that they think that about me. And I think for a while I was obsessed with what I just pulled out in my pocket, like the cash aspect of like that being what I was going after. And it took me a while to realize, and I think maybe just mature as an adult, to realize it's all the things that money can get me. And I'm not talking about a big house, a big car, like material things. I'm talking about like how much easier it can make life and how much my experiences with life can be enhanced or better with my ability to understand money better and to accumulate the actual things that have value, not pieces of paper, but bring things into my life that have value that can multiply. Because this $100 bill will always be $100 bill till the end of time. The buying power of that $100 bill will continue to decrease. Right. And that is a whole nother conversation, but it will always be $100.
If you had a $100 bill and it was from 1950, you had a 1950 $100 bill and you were able to time travel and you dropped back into time, that same bill that was in your pocket, you just happened to be old enough so it was still current.
Yes.
Obviously, you could do a lot more with that
whole hell of a lot more
1950 than you could do in 50 years. Like we understand that, and it's like, and what you were saying, and I'm going to just time in like the concept of it, one of the things that, you know, think about the stress, like the anxiety that people go through in marriages or as an individual, when you own a business or you work or you're out of work. Think about like what that does to you in terms of your wellness, you know, your life expectancy. Like people that stress over money die quicker. Like people, you know, we've read that stuff. The people that are like, you're so worried about like, you know, how am I going to stretch that dollar? So the concept is that if you can be smarter with how you manage your money, whichever way you choose to do it, that you're taking a lot of that pressure off of you. If you understand the true value of what wealth is versus the amount of wealth that you collect, if that makes any sense. Like I get that from a philosophical standpoint. And that's why I think as I've been reading more and watching more Bitcoiners that follow you and your comments and just some of the stuff that I've watched because of you, like you start to understand it's a different mindset. It's a mindset as opposed to like a financial management plan. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's kind of how I try to explain to people quite often when I tell them I have the Bitcoin guy who comes in, and I'm like, it's interesting. I go, if you listen to him, it's a lot more than about what's on the chart.
Yeah, that's unfortunately what everybody wants to talk about. And ironically, we start out the podcast with the chart because that's what brings people in. They want to know the value of what it is and how much it costs and what they can make and all that. But it's really like it's a fundamental challenge. It's a philosophical challenge when you are entering into this Bitcoin space. If you're just a visitor and you're just here to like make fiat profits, Obviously, it's just going to be like anything else you buy. It's going to be like a stock you buy, or it's going to be like a baseball card you buy, or a house that you flip. It's not going to have much meaning, and you're a tourist. You're only here for a short period of time. It won't matter. But if you're here and you're trying to learn and you see something in this ecosystem, there's a lot of commitment of time that's required for you to really completely understand what it is you're getting yourself into, because Bitcoin represents so many things. It's not just number go up. Like, unfortunately, for a lot of what I'm seeing on Bitcoin Twitter now, and I spoke on a Bitcoin Spaces a couple of weeks ago, the Bitcoin Army Spaces, where I said that, like, sometimes I feel like an outsider in the community that I'm more a part of than any other community probably on the planet, the Bitcoin community. I feel like an outsider because there's so many people here that are just so consumed with, the number going up, and how is Bitcoin going to be 200,000 this year, or is Bitcoin going to be $1 million by 2030? And it's like, if that's all you're here for, and that's all that any of this means to you, you're probably never going to get to see that number anyways, because Bitcoin doesn't do what you expect it to do. It gives you what you deserve. It doesn't give you what you think you should get. It gives you what you deserve. Like, it's a very humbling experience being a Bitcoiner and being a holder. Like, when people say, Bitcoin hodler or Bitcoin holder, like, it's one of the hardest things someone can do.
Really funny, like, because the first thing they tell you with your investments is that if you're thinking of Bitcoin as like an investment, like the way you do, that you're not planning to use it at this point. And that's the same concept of my investments. Like, I don't invest when I was teaching. I fully understand that when I'm putting my money into, in a 403B in my case, I can't touch that till I retire, and I can't. Penalties I can, but the penalties would be. But I understand that it's an investment for down the road, for my family, for my future, for my well-being, so that when I can't work, like, there's a mindset for it, as opposed to if I didn't want to live in that mindset that I was putting this money aside for my future, then I should have just been, like flipping a house, or, buying gold and then selling the gold. And I think a lot of people don't want to spend that time doing the research on it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's why you hire someone, or you invest with somebody, because you theoretically believe that person's going to have your, best interest in heart. It's funny because I get these letters, every couple months. I'll get some from Voya or something on something I got to vote on. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with this shit. I look at it all the time. Like, hey, we need you to log in for this meeting, and decide how we want to, if you want to vote on this fund. And I always kind of laugh at that, because I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's like I probably should spend the time to determine that, but it's just, I think a lot of us don't necessarily understand how to navigate the space, whether it's investments or Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, because you made a good point where you were talking about, like, investments and how people, like, view it, and this whole Bitcoin experience is not just about investing to put in $100 to one day get out 1,000 for every 100. Like, that's part of it. It's I mean, obviously, when you put money into something, you want it to bring value, and for the things that I already talked about in regards to, like, life experiences and enrich your life and stuff like that. But it's just like, this is just a new way that gives us an opportunity as humans to change the system that we have, because the system that we have isn't helping anyone except for the top of the top 1%. They're the only ones that get enriched by a fiat system, by a system that can just print money at will. The rest of us, our buying power just evaporates faster than we can make new money, faster than we can accumulate assets to outpace that. And, like I said last week, like, in my lifetime, September 11th, the great financial crisis, and COVID happened in a 20-year span. 3 major events in a 20-year span. That's just, it's alarming. I mean, it might be recency biased. I mean, the other generations, they went through depressions and world wars and all those types of things. But the cost of living and wages and in percentages compared to today, and the debt that our country has today is just dramatically different than it was during those previous times. So even if you want to say all things remain equal, the experiences that we're having now in these types of events that occur are just more devastating to your average American and your average person walking around, because it just makes it that much harder to come back from those types of events. I mean, we saw a period of time from 2020 to 2022 where we had like back-to-back double-digit inflation years. I mean, they threw 8% and 9% at us because they didn't want to scare us with 10 and make it a double digit. So they said it was only 8 or 9 or whatever bullshit number that they gave us. But you and I both know we were probably sitting at 13, 14, 15% of real inflation that we experienced, which means if you worked a job for those 2 years and you got a 2 or 3% raise, which in my case, the job that I worked gave me a 0.5% raise in one of those years. So you literally lost a quarter of your buying power in a 2-year range. Like, that's just losing a quarter of your buying power in 2 years when you were losing a quarter of your buying power in like almost 15 to 20 is just so astronomically bad to an entire generation of people that I don't even think we truly completely understand how much that'll set us back for another 10 or 20 years. When we take a look back and we look at like my generation that's going to be retired, the baby boomers will mostly, either be in their 90s or hundreds, and it'll be mine and your generation that's in the retirement phase, and we're looking at like we're going into Walmart or we're going into Sam's Club, and we're like, why are there so many 70-year-olds greeting us at the door now? Why are there so many 70-year-olds, in the store stocking shit? Like, what's going on?
I work with them. I'm like, you're going to have to work. You're going to be working forever, so you might as well find some things you want to do, like. I was able in my industry to get out after 31 years at 55. Like, that's not even an option anymore. That was eliminated by the state. That's not even if you want to get your retirement, you can retire, but you can't get your full retirement until you're 62 now. And so that's an extra 7 years. And do I believe that in 30 years that the average human's lifespan is increasing by 7 years? I don't think so.
You don't think it is?
I don't think in 30 years, do you think our kids, my kids are a little bit older than yours, that their life expectancy is going to be 7 years more than yours and mine?
Yeah. You know why?
So?
I don't think I can tell you what insurance companies are thinking. Because they do the actuary planning, and they're the ones that are figuring things out. They're changing their whole life strategies that used to be till age 100 to age 120.
Really?
So they're predicting that we're going to be living longer, and they're spending the millions of dollars to do the research. So I would agree. If I didn't know that information, I would think how you think. But whatever's going on behind the scenes technologically that we don't understand or know is going to make us live longer, which only exacerbates this problem that we're talking about. Because
if you're living to 105, like there's nothing that can show me that living
people are not retiring with 40 years of income.
Right.
Full stop.
That's impossible.
Full stop.
So you're working to your 70s.
Some ain't even doing 20.
The question is that what? And the other thing, it's not just length of life; it's quality of life. So, like, if you're 100 versus, let's say, in 30 years, 40 years, you can live to 100. My concern is that much of those last years, maybe they're extended because you're getting whatever. Is it a quality? Is it a number of quality years?
Yeah.
Or is it just bankrupting everyone in your life because now you're in a nursing home?
Can you imagine? Can you imagine what the healthcare system is going to look like when our average age is? I can't speak on that because I don't have the numbers. I don't know. I can just say that like the average mortality ages are like, it's a 3-year difference between men and women. I think women are living to like, I could be completely wrong. Somebody can chat GBT this in real time. I think for women, it's like close to 82 or 83. And for men, it's like 79 or 80. So if we fast forward out 20 or 30 years and we're sitting at like 93 and like 89 for, you know what I mean? Like now we're talking about because I do business in the TradFi world, so I see what people are like. I'm in the Bitcoin world and I'm in the TradFi world. I see what people are doing on the TradFi side, and I have the Bitcoin conversations with them, and I have the TradFi conversations with them, and I hear them tell me all the excuses that they have of why they can't save money now, and they're in their 40s and 50s, and they have little to nothing saved. And 65 is not like, for me, 65 is a couple high school careers away right now for me. Where, you know what I'm saying? It's getting close. So 65 comes, 70 comes, and people thought that that's when you're supposed to stop working, and they try to stop working.
That work in that private sector jobs. Pretty much everybody that I know that I'm friends with that's my age, and I'm 58. The people that I know that are in their 50s, early 60s, most of them pretty much ended up working longer than they anticipated. Partially because they maybe enjoyed what they were doing. They felt like
healthcare
they wanted
too.
to have the extra
Healthcare
too, the extra years of income. Maybe their kids were in the house longer, or they wanted to help their kids with college debt. But a lot of it wasn't because I just love my job. Nobody did it because they said they loved. There's the occasional person, wacko out there,
Joe.
But most of the people was, you know what? I had to replace my sewer system, so I'm going to work an extra year. Like, there was all financial reasons that they chose to work longer. And then some of my friends that are slightly younger, maybe in your age group, most of them have talked about, I thought maybe I'd be able to get out at 55 or 60. Now I'm realizing I'm probably going to work till I'm closer to 70.
Yeah.
Just because they know the money doesn't go as far.
It's really scary when you look at like where we're trending, and I've been saying this for a while. We have a big retirement bubble problem on the horizon about 15 to 20 years out that nobody is properly addressing. And we talk about, like, we have these conversations about Social Security, and you can go on the SSA.gov website and see, it'll tell you, like, for, by 2035 or whatever year it is, for every $1,000 you're supposed to get, you can probably expect to get 800 of it if we stay on the same track that we're on with nothing being changed, which I don't think they will change anything. So even the, these people that are just going to be on it's just like, I can't imagine in 20 years somebody having to live on like $3,000 or $4,000 a month. Like $3,000 or $4,000 a month now is tough. And imagine 15 or 20 years somebody trying to live on that. Like, it's just wild. Like, on top of all the healthcare costs that'll be associated with whatever, and we don't fix that. Like, there's just so many problems that, and we're worried about Iran and Israel. We're worried about that right now. Like, that's got our focus. Well, instead of fixing shit here, we're worried about like protecting and I don't want to make it too super political because it can go a whole bunch of different directions. But it's like, this is the shit that pisses off people like me that become Bitcoiners, because we're like, when are we going to take care of home? When are we going to have real conversations about fixing things here? Because we keep kicking the can every generation, kick the can. Eventually, somebody's got to pick the can up and say, what are we going to do with it?
It's all distractions. It's always been distractions. It's like, as soon as we start talking about certain things, suddenly there's a crisis, and the news companies and the newspaper industry.
What did you call it? False flags?
It's called Wag the Dog.
Wag the Dog. That's
so
what.
It's
Yeah.
a book, and it's a great movie. John Travolta plays a Clinton-like president. I mentioned it last week. It's a great movie. It's kind of I think it's, from everything I've read, and if you look at if you just Google Wag the Dog and you do like examples of it, it's like, Clinton did it, Bush did it. I think our current president does it. I think Obama did. I think they've all done it. I think they all find ways, some of it varying levels of how do they distract themselves from said controversy or said poll that's not as high as they want it to be or whatever. But there's definitely this, like, and I'm not necessarily a conspiracy guy, but like, it's just, let's change. And I think I forget, because I don't teach this anymore, but I think the average news story is 3 days, 72 hours, and then they move on to the news story. So like,
go to this tweet I got up right here. Yeah. This is kind of what we're talking about. Matthew Cratter, who's a Bitcoin University guy, real good Bitcoiner. He tweeted this earlier. I love this guy. Wish he could be president. Donald Trump tweet from October 9th, 2019, when he was still president the first term. The United States has spent $8 trillion fighting and policing in the Middle East. Thousands of our great soldiers have died or been badly wounded. Millions of people have died on the other side. Going into the Middle East is the worst decision ever made. Here we are, repeating history, doing the same shit we did before. And what do they say about insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I'm not going to say I think they're all wrong. I think everybody's evil. I think every participant in the fighting in the Middle East is evil and wrong. Full stop.
Leadership.
Yes. The leaders of all parties that are in charge of rockets and fighting are all in the wrong. Full stop.
Because at the end of the day, they eventually have to sit down and work it out. And it's all saber rattling. And
it's either that or somebody drops a nuke. There's no other option. Either you negotiate a deal and have actual peace, or somebody goes and drops a nuke and then we just blow up the whole world. Because they've been doing this.
That's the Albert Einstein quote. He says, I don't know how World 3 is going to be fought, but I know World War 4 is going to be caught with sticks and stones.
Yeah.
He's like, and that's the thing that my frustration is that, and a lot of people have been talking about that today with Trump, that, quotes from 2011 talking about this guy, and they're talking about Obama, I can't believe he did this, and we're going to be in a war because of the thing, and there's lots of people saying, well, the reason why Trump ripped up the deal with Iran in the beginning wasn't a good deal. Then negotiate a better deal before you ripped it up. To me, you don't rip up the current deal. Say, you know what? Let's work on making this a better deal. The first time he did that, the first time he was president, and now all of a sudden, what a surprise! We're at this thing. And now, do I like the other guy that was in office? The old guy, didn't like him either. But because neither one of them, I think, are really interested, and for whatever reason, Israel says something, and we kind of go along with it as a country.
How about this? I'm no geopolitical expert, so I don't want to pretend that I am. So this might sound stupid, but just thinking this through out loud, we're so concerned with Iran having nukes or potentially having nukes, right? Because variety of reasons, and we got to have Israel, whatever the case may be. Russia's had nukes for what? How many years?
Who's worse than Russia that has nukes?
China.
Worse.
Than
Crazy.
Russia or China? North Korea. Yeah. Yeah. But the point is, but the point is,
alone. Nobody messes with North Korea. Why? Because they have a nuke.
Yeah, but the point is, I use Russia.
I
use Russia as an example because they technically, from what we're being told or sold, is that they got aggressive with Ukraine. So they actually showed aggression, allegedly. Right. That's the narrative. Right. So if we're to believe that narrative, that Russia got aggressive with another country, and the fear is that they're going to go do that with other countries because that's what we're being sold. Why we have to we're literally backing Ukraine to put the line in the sand. So if that's true, if that's all true, why are no bombs going over to Russia? Why are we not going into Russia or contemplating bombing Russia for the shit that they're doing? No, we're going to Iran, who has a piddly little military, and they got beef with Israel that they've had for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. But now we get involved because of whatever Israel holds over us or the relationship they have with them. So now we have to get involved, potentially bombing the stuff that they have the nuclear weapons with, and it's it makes no sense. When you really logically think about what you're being told.
If you take the emotion out of it, then I don't like
logic doesn't exist. Logic is not present
because they look like this, or they dress this way, or they have this philosophical belief that is scary to me because I'm a this, and I'm being very vague because it's the same thing. It was I swear to God, and I posted this several times today because I was trying to get people to understand, and I usually don't get into fights with this. So I'm sorry, the wag the dog theory, and I'm a big believer in it, is that Israel was not winning the political fight that they wanted to win in Palestine. They were losing that battle. More and more people in this country and across the world are not, they're shocked. They thought everybody would agree with Israel because of what happened in Germany that is unrelated. And they're well, we need a bigger villain. Who's a bigger villain?
Iran.
Iran's the bigger villain. Because they supply everybody. So you know what? We're going to they started it. We started it. It's I punch you in the face because I'm afraid that you're going to wake me up in the middle of the night and punch me in the face. It's the dumbest. And then people are wondering why we're fighting. And then, like it's just it doesn't make any sense to me why people continue to fall for this. And it's all about emotion. It's all about emotion. And it's like there's no common sense.
All right, let's jump back in. No, it's okay. Let's jump back into some of the Bitcoin stuff. I want to play this video really quick. This is Richard Solanas, I believe his last name is. Let's watch this video. It's only 54 seconds, really quick.
Mainly because, the authors of the fraud are the people in government and positions of power, and they're the number one beneficiaries of all this money printing. Mm-hmm. Of course, the normal people are the ones that lose their savings through inflation and debasement. So, yeah, Bitcoin is here to stay. I really don't care about its price daily. As a matter of fact, it's funny because I heard in your intro that billionaires are buying. Happens to be that we're in a buying this precise week unrelated to this war. But yeah, we've increased our Bitcoin holdings considerably just in this past week because I'm not going to be waiting to time the perfect moment to get in. I just know what's going to happen down the road, and I don't want to miss out on that.
So that is the third richest billionaire, Mexico's third richest billionaire, saying he's increased his Bitcoin holdings considerably this week. I'm not waiting. I know what's going to happen. Let's go. Wolf Crypto, when billionaires move fast, smart people pay attention. When Hat Sailor sells his yacht, then we will know he's serious. It's kind of funny. Let's go into the next video. This one here. This is from BTC Sessions. Very, very good follow. His content has really gotten good. Channel's been growing very, very rapidly in the last couple of years. Really good follow if you're not following him already. Shout out to BTC Sessions. Let's listen to this video really quick as well, and we'll talk about this one next.
This is your opportunity. That's why we say stay humble, stack sats. Your goal right now is to just stack sats like a smart psychopath. That's what you got to do. And then you can't let go of those damn things. I mean, when you get your sats, it's got to be precious to you. And I don't trade. I don't do leverage. I'm never exposed mark to market. I never have to worry about losing my Bitcoin. I keep it in many different buckets, from cold storage to every other thing you can imagine. And again, these jackasses that don't understand the value of what they have and they're trying to trade around it, or they're short-term holders that are getting washed out of this market, you're going to learn the hard way. Everybody gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And some of us are going to pay a higher price than others, and it's going to be a painful event. There's going to be a lot of crocodile tears, and there are going to be a lot of people in the future that are pissy about this. They're going to look at the four of us sitting here on this screen. There's going to be people that think we had a privilege, almost like a first look, a first take on something, that we were early because we were lucky. That's not the case. Anybody that's been in this space long enough, you're not lucky to be here. You got to, you've got to be tough. You got to be hard to hang on to your Bitcoin and get to where you can sit back and relax in life.
When it comes to securing your Bitcoin, nothing beats the cold card.
All right, we won't go into the ads. We're not going to help promote ads for BTC Sessions. We'll just promote his channel. No ads, BTC Sessions. If you paid attention, and one of the reasons why I showed those two videos specifically was because something that I think is fascinating, as somebody that's been in this space since 2013. What did you notice about those two videos? What do those two people that were speaking have in common? Outside of wealth.
I'm not sure what you mean. Like visually, or just like
when you look at them, what do they the two of them have in common?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Not young.
Well, one was younger, the other guy is older.
The guy that was speaking in the second one that was doing all the talking, telling you stack stats, he was definitely probably in his 60s, and the first guy was definitely in his 70s. Yeah, right. So both guys that were talking is vigorously about, owning this asset and the value of this asset and stacking and holding and all that. Like, those are older guys. And
a good point. I didn't think of it because I think probably traditionally, like if you put up like 5 pictures of people and you ask me who would be Bitcoiners, I would intuitively not pick the old guy.
When somebody that's young has money, they're like, oh, he made money. He's made millions in
I'm
crypto.
Probably picking a guy who's like 35.
Yeah.
That's probably who I'm thinking.
Yep.
Like, probably, that would be I think that would be the common sense assumption that I would make about what I think a younger person with younger ideas versus a guy who's been around financial management for a long time and understands the flaws in the system.
You're going to see the method of my madness. Look at the next screen. Change in Bitcoin ownership in 2025. Businesses plus 157,000 coins. Funds and ETFs plus 49,000 coins. Other plus 21,000 coins. Government plus 19,000 coins. Individual owners minus 247,000 coins. The unfortunate reality of this cycle here that's happening right now is that so many individuals, and unfortunately, we've seen it on chain, long-term holders have been selling Bitcoin. I guess 100K was the price target for a lot of people. And again, this goes back to like the fiat mindset. This goes back to like, oh, I'm making an investment. I put in X and I want to get Y out. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those types of things. Everybody's life and circumstances make them have to do certain things and make certain decisions. And who am I to judge those decisions? I'm just taking a helicopter view of things. And I'm just pointing out that governments, businesses, institutions, the players with money are scooping up Bitcoin and scooping up the hard assets. And they're going to have an overwhelming majority of those assets when the price really starts to take off. And
I wanted to go back to the graph because it's more, if you look at that's interesting because when you look at the amount of people, individuals that have parted with it,
it's not negative.
Yeah.
It's not negative.
Yeah.
Everything else is net positive because there's inflows and outflows. Right. Individuals are net negative. Individuals have sold more than they've bought.
Do you think that's out of necessity or is it out of they're making a calculated decision based on they don't think it's going to get much bigger, or what do you think?
I think a lot of long-term holders that have been in this for a long time started to realize some profits for whatever reason. I don't think they sold all their tokens, but they definitely sold a lot. And there's people that come into this ecosystem and they might have bought in at 20 or 30,000 and they sold at 80 or 100,000 and they made their money. And there's definitely a lot of market manipulation at play. So these governments and institutions know how to flush people. And the other thing too is like the trading too is the other aspect, because when you're trading your Bitcoin, you're not necessarily selling it on purpose, but you're getting washed out. Like the second guy talked about, when you're leverage trading or you're just trading, sometimes you get liquidated when you have these events. And we've had quite a few, especially during Trump's administration. I mean, think about Liberation Day. Think about these different like bombs and rockets that have gone off at different periods of time and rocking crypto markets, and you're in leverage at 11:30 at night on a Saturday, and you don't realize that Iran's getting bombed by another country, and all of a sudden Bitcoin's price drops 6K and hits your liquidation price, and then you lose your Bitcoin. And the government and institutions and the businesses are there to scoop them up. And one of the big things that we've seen this cycle too, that I think we're going to continue to see this cycle, is these companies and corporations putting it on their balance sheets. Like a lot of these companies are taking their cash and their treasuries and putting Bitcoin on their balance sheets, and there's only so many that are mined every single day and on exchanges, and people are selling them to the exchanges, and the businesses are coming in and scooping them up. And it's just the part of this that really bothers me is, especially being in this ecosystem as long as I have, it's like people are living through this in real time. What I believe will be one of the most, I think it already is, but I think what will be viewed by others, Bitcoiners view it this way today, but what will be viewed by the masses the way that Bitcoiners view it today, which is Bitcoin being pristine collateral, pristine asset, one of the best, scarcest assets you can own, will one day be viewed by the overwhelming majority. And most of them are living right now and will have had the opportunity to get Bitcoin at lower levels than now and the levels of today when Bitcoin's trading in the hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not millions and millions of dollars per coin. And like the second guy said, they'll be looking at people that do own the asset then, like, oh my God, you were so lucky that you were so early. And it's not easy. It's not easy to hold an asset from 3,000 to 60,000 and from 60,000 back down to 15,000 and from 15,000 up to 110,000 and all these gyrations in between. That's not easy. It takes a lot of conviction. It takes a lot of study, a lot of understanding, and people earn it. We earn our coins. You earn your Bitcoin and you earn your knowledge. And it's really important. Like I keep saying to everybody, you need to study the system that we're in now. You need, especially with what's going on in the Middle East, and understanding that a debt-based system, a fiat currency, allows these rockets to be thrown off at will. I mean, look at, I mean, Iran sends rockets to Israel, and Israel's literally sending off rockets in their Iron Dome just to stop the rockets that are coming to them, then sending other rockets to Iran to bomb Iran. You know how many millions and millions of dollars that costs to do that, to be able to do that type of stuff? I mean,
yeah, when the money's unlimited, there's no just keep doing it.
Two more things before we close this thing out today. Gary Cardone, shout out to Gary Cardone. He follows me on X. I follow him on X. Visa and MasterCard, 63 trillion transactions open for reversal for 180 days. That's why I didn't realize it was that long, 6 months, versus 46.4 trillion transactions settled. Settling is way different than a transaction. This is super important because you get a lot of people who get upset that Bitcoin isn't the peer-to-peer currency that was in the white paper and it's a store of value, and you get people upset and they want more transactions and bigger blocks and all this nonsense. And there's like, we want to compete with Visa and MasterCard of all the transactions they do. Take a look at this chart. 24.78 trillion transactions on MasterCard, 38.98 trillion transactions on Visa, 46.4 transactions on Bitcoin, but those are settled transactions, settled within the day. It takes 180 days before transactions are settled. You go and pay for something in a MasterCard or a Visa, the business gets the immediate credit to their ledger, but they don't get the actual cash from the bank for, depending on the clearinghouse, 3 to 7 days, whatever the hell it is. They get the actual cash. It isn't actually settled on the MasterCard or Visa ledger for 180 days. When you make a Bitcoin transaction, it's settled same day on the Bitcoin ledger. Same day settlement. That's a huge difference. There is no reversals. There is no waiting for your money. There is just, you make the transaction, it's confirmed on the blockchain through 6 transactions, and the settlement is made that day. That's a huge difference between the traditional finance system. Going
crazy.
back to the earlier
if you would have asked
chart.
me to predict that, like if you could have covered up the 46 trillion and showed me MasterCard and Visa, so I'd have in perspective, and said, what's the number? I would have probably put it like under 20. I don't think people realize how much is going on in that system.
Look at the first comment. Adapt or die. All the legacy banking and credit card companies are fighting for their lives. Fun to watch. Good luck to all the dinosaurs stealing our money. Times are changing. Every time I walk into a bank and I look around, I think to myself, you guys are literally dead men and women walking. Like, it's already like these banks, these brick and mortar banks are already shells of themselves just because of the online arena that they offer now with the, like, there's so many things.
Like fun little, like
there's so many
coffee
things that
shops.
you can do online now that there's little to no reason to go into a branch except for, large deposits or opening accounts and such, which even that stuff you can do online. But it's just like the amount of, just between AI and Bitcoin, like in 20 years, I don't even know if brick and mortar branches will exist at all. It'll be wild to keep track and pay attention to see like what that stuff looks like. And we'll end with this chart here. If you think Bitcoin is boring and slow, you are right. This is what we need. Study sound money. Bitcoin in 2021, 67,000 a coin. Litecoin in 2021, 390 a coin. Ethereum in 2021, 4,600 a coin. Cardano in 2021, 290 a coin. Solana in 2021, $236 a coin. Today, from where those 2021 prices were, Bitcoin up 62%, Litecoin down 78%, Ethereum down 44%, Cardano down 78%, Solana down 35%. And we don't even have XRP on there. We don't even have any of these other plethora of shit coins that are on there. And it's like every single day I see somebody in one of these altcoin communities tweeting their coin into relevance and speaking about all the great things that their coin does, and even in some instances about why it's going to supplant Bitcoin, why it's better than Bitcoin, why it does all these great things compared to Bitcoin. Yet when we go to the marketplace and we take a look at what the market values, the market values scarcity, the market values sound money, the market values good assets, and everything else pales in comparison to Bitcoin. And people keep trying to sell the idea that these other tokens are going to be better than Bitcoin. And again, to be clear, on a short-term time frame, it is entirely possible that any one of these coins could have a good month, a good couple of months, and outperform Bitcoin in a smaller time frame. But over the course of all long-term, and we've been at this for a minute. Bitcoin was 2009. I mean, Litecoin's been around since 2011. Ethereum 14 or 15. Cardano 17. Solana I think 17 or 20 or 19, I don't know, whatever. They've been around for a minute. We got some sample size to look at. And over the course of these sample sizes, Bitcoin is completely blown out of the water. All these other shit coins, all these other alternative coins, people that are jumping online and trying to tell you that Caspa's the new Bitcoin, or Ethereum's going to have this big run and they're going to have a flippening, or Cardano's doing all this cool shit. The owner of Cardano's literally converting 100 billion of Cardano into Bitcoin. It's just like rinse and repeat. Study Bitcoin, stay humble, stack sats. If you want to be in this thing for a long period of time, accumulate Bitcoin, continue to stack sats. If you want to be here for a short time, have at it with the shit coining, have at it with the leverage trading, have at it with all the nonsense that the crypto community can provide for you, and you won't be here for a long time, and you'll be one of those people that are tweeting hate towards people like us that own the Bitcoin, that have owned it for a long period of time, that keep telling you cycle after cycle that Bitcoin is this pristine asset, it's sound money. Stop shit coining. And with that, thank you for watching. Please, I know I always forget to say this, if you watch it this long, we got our socials going at the bottom of the screen. Please follow me on X. Please follow me on Defion Productions Podcast on YouTube. We go live every week, usually on Thursdays. We're doing it this week on a Wednesday. Like this video, subscribe, give me some feedback, give me some comments. And as always, with everything in life, don't trust, verify. Peace.